Welcome to what week are we on? Week 3. So we're so excited that my beautiful friend Ace from the States is here. She's going to talk about all sorts of things about feng shui and decluttering your home and making your space sacred and awesome, which I think is a good little theme of our spring clean. So yeah, thank you so much for coming, babe, and giving us your time. And I'll hand it over to you.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for having me. It's so nice to see a couple of faces and everyone just for tuning in. So to start, we'll just kind of take a few breaths together. So maybe close your eyes or wherever you are, what you're doing, just take a big inhale through the nose and exhale out of the mouth. Let's do 3 more breaths like that, inhaling through the nose. Big exhale out of the mouth. Good. Last 2. Good. For your last breath, just let your shoulders fall away from your ears. Feel yourself become a little more comfortable, a little more quiet. Good. Okay. When you're ready, go ahead and open your eyes. Just continue breathing. Make sure you're feeling nice and rested and relaxed as we dive in. So, my name's Ailsa. A lot of people call me Ace. I help people organize. I've never been a particularly organized person, ironically. I'm the kind of person that goes on a trip and has their clothes like exploding everywhere. And it's not like I've always been this organized person. But I discovered the KonMari method a couple of years ago, and it really changed my perspective on how I want to fill my life with things and just make it kind of more sacred relationship with my stuff, and also how to kind of clean it and organize and really live that harmonious life. So I started studying feng shui in addition to the KonMari method. And feng shui, for anyone that's not familiar, is the ancient art stemming from China of how to create a harmonious space. So within feng shui, we take into consideration 5 elements. Those 5 elements are water, wood, earth, metal, and what's the last one? In feng shui, it's not air and it's not anyway, they'll come back to me, but it's a little early here, so I can type it in the chat. But we take into consideration the elements, and all of those elements kind of relate to colors and shapes, so it's not necessarily obvious what elements relate to certain things, but it just takes a little bit of study and practice. So it's really fun to start to kind of observe spaces that you enter and notice like what's the dominant element here and how could that maybe affect that person's life, whoever's living there. Because the basic premise is that whatever's closest to us has the biggest impact on us. So from the food that we eat to even the clothes that we wear and the space we inhabit, the people we're surrounded with, and then getting bigger and bigger and bigger until where we live, our planet, our universe, all of that. So yeah, that's just a little bit of history, and I guess we could just start by asking, like, who has clutter in their house? Like, who has a space that has clutter, a drawer, a closet? Maybe not Sally because she has a van, and there's not as much space. But I think it's pretty common. Pretty much everyone has a space in their home that's like the junk drawer where they throw stuff or where things aren't organized, and you're just like, oh, I'll get to that one day, but maybe not now. So yeah, maybe just a show of hands if that's something you can relate to. Yes, so pretty much everyone I see has their hands raised. And it's challenging. Like, how do we start with that? So, has anyone here is anyone here familiar with the KonMari method or Marie Kondo's show or books? Probably familiar with like the spark joy method. Okay, I'll talk about that in a minute. Hang on. So Marie Kondo is she's Japanese, and she is like a fairy. She loves having things like organized and tidy, and what I love about Marie Kondo is that she really embraces this kind of same notion that we have in feng shui, which is that everything around us has an energetic charge. So things are meant to be used, things are meant to be appreciated. When we have clutter in our homes and things that aren't being used and stuffed away in closets, it's a very low energetic charge. It's going to bring the energy of the house down. It's going to bring your energy level down because it's just like an energy suck, even if you can't see it. So Marie Kondo started this whole movement with two of her books and this Netflix series about how to kind of go through your life, go through your belongings, and determine what matters to you, and kind of rediscover how you want to live. So her method is is kind of interesting because you start by piling up all of your clothes into one big pile. And she says that this is important so that you can kind of be confronted with the amount of clothing that you own. And so when I help clients, if they have a huge closet, obviously that's a little bit too intimidating to pile up all of your clothes and go through it in one day. So you can separate it by category. But you pile up all your clothes and you go through each piece one by one. And I should start by saying the first part of this decluttering method is to consider like what kind of life you want to lead. Like envision the best version of you and kind of like how you want to show up in your life, how you like yourself best when you show up in certain ways, and kind of use those qualities as a measurement to decide what you want to keep and what you want to get rid of. And so when you're going through these clothes, you go through one by one. And if it's just like you're holding it and you're like, oh, yes, I love this. It's comfortable. It's cute. It's easy. It's makes me feel sexy. It makes me feel confident. Then that's like a definite yes. And those kind of pieces are the benchmark. And then anything that's just not comfortable, or maybe it just feels like it's stained or has lived its life with you, or it's just like reminds you of bad times, like you can just say thank you and put it in the giveaway pile. And so this is just a unique way of deciding what you want to keep and what you want to get rid of. Is that, does it spark joy? Does it bring out the person in me that I really want to be moving forward? Because our belongings and the clothes that we wear really do have an impact on how we live and engage with others. So anyone that's looking to declutter, I definitely recommend reading her books. I can put them in the chat also, but it's the life-changing magic of tidying up. And then the second one is called Spark Joy. So those I think are just the best kind of resources for decluttering, if that's something that you're looking to do, because she has you start with the clothes and then you go through books, and it's kind of the same thing. Like you lay all your books out and you go through them one by one, and it's very sacred. And it's not the kind of thing for people who just want to reorganize stuff and just kind of be hasty about it. It's definitely like a communion with your stuff. It's a reflection of your life, and that's really what it's about. So after books, you would do papers. After papers, you would do miscellaneous, which would be like, a lot of people have insane amounts of cleaning supplies or kitchen kitchen supplies that just gets like built up over time. And finally, after going through all those stages, you would come to sentimental items, because sentimental is the hardest for everyone to get rid of, right? Because everything has a memory, everything feels like it's so important to hold on to. It's like a part of our identity, these things that we collect over time. But by using this method, by the time you reach the sentimental stuff, you really have a good sense of what kind of gives you that joy, and what brings you light and energy, and you're able to just kind of file things down to a few things that you really love and appreciate. And the reality is that you're going to get so much more out of a space where you're decorating consciously with just a few relics or maybe pieces of art or things that make you feel joyful and good and happy rather than like a ton of stuff and clutter. So that's kind of why I like this method too, is just for the sustainability part, because I think, especially in the US and globally, we have this need to consume and I'll be happy when syndrome, buying stuff and feeling like you need all this stuff to be happy. And then we're left with, mountains of junk basically in our homes that we can't even really face alone. So that's the work that I do with clients. We can kind of take a break here and just kind of see if anyone has any comments or questions about the decluttering aspect of things, because it definitely goes hand in hand with feng shui. Okay, no problem. Keep going. So that's kind of like, if I'm going to help someone organize their space, the first thing that you do is declutter. And people will be like, oh no, I like everything I have. And it's like, okay, well, maybe we'll just try just a little bit of the method, and then sure enough, like there's a pile of stuff that they're like, oh, yeah, I don't really want this anymore. And it's definitely satisfying once you get through it, but it can also be really emotional to kind of confront our belongings, confront our past, confront um, the life that we've lived so far. So it's definitely worthwhile work, and it's, for me, like I've had a couple people who are like, oh yeah, like we want to hire you, and then what they really want is just organizing. Like they just want someone to go in and make their stuff look pretty, and I'm not doing that anymore, because I'm like, this isn't what it's about for me. For what it's about for me is helping people, kind of helping facilitate that change in people, that change in mentality, that change in mindset, and actually like be there to support them as they go through this big purge. It doesn't have to be like a negative thing as a purge, but I think it's a purge kind of emotionally, to go through this stuff and like really rewrite your life. It's a chance to redefine yourself, redefine your history, kind of step forward with a new identity. And that's what's exciting for me. That's what's fun for me about this type of work. So if you guys are interested in the KonMari method, you can read her books. There are consultants all over the world like me that can go in and help you do it physically if you need help. It's an exciting time, I think, for just that people are, spending more time at home and really just being more conscious about the spaces that they live in, whether it's, redesigning a home office or just creating a space for your hobbies or whatever that is. It's I think it's a fun project to go through your stuff and then be like very intentional about how you want to set up your new home. Some of the things I notice when I go to other people's homes, is that they'll have beautiful things, but they're just distracted by the clutter. So it's one thing to have a beautiful piece of art or maybe some flowers or a little sculpture or whatever in your house, but then there's like papers and keys and money and trash and all this stuff distracting from that space. And so if you think about the people that are there all day, they're naturally going to be kind of distracted from life. And I'm sure, I mean, you guys are all a yoga community, so you kind of get the energetics of being weighed down by mental clutter, emotional clutter, physical clutter is definitely can take a toll on you. So in terms of feng shui, clutter, oh, Tara has a hand raise. I just saw that. Maybe she doesn't mean to. In terms of feng shui, then clutter is like the number one priority, right? So getting rid of clutter, getting rid of dust, getting rid of dirt, getting rid of anything that's kind of dead and decaying. So that's not to say if you have like dead flowers that those are bad feng shui. And but you definitely don't want to be living in a house that feels kind of dirty, dusty, cluttered. That's just naturally going to bring everything a little bit lower. And another cool thing about feng shui is that, you know, so many people are like, oh, that's bad feng shui, or all these rules, right? But the fun thing about feng shui is that it's all about working with energy. So there is no kind of hard and fast rules, because it always depends on um, the specific circumstances of where you're living, kind of how you're living. And I think most of the time, if you had a feng shui expert come into your house and you say, oh my gosh, you know, I have beams overhead, like that's bad feng shui, they'll be like, not necessarily. Like, it's not like we have to go all painting our houses certain colors and using these tips that circulate, because it really just depends on how it's working in your space. And if it's not causing you any problems, then kind of like, why change it? For a long time, I've described feng shui to people as like yoga for your home, because I really think that it's like unblocking energetic channels, just like we do in yoga. Uh, Kind of opening up these areas, letting your energy flow freely. It's the same thing in our homes. We want that energy, or qi is what the term is called in feng shui, to circulate properly and not feel stagnant or weighed down in certain parts of your space. Um, any questions or any comments?
Yeah, I have a question. So with feng shui, that matters like how you arrange your furniture and stuff, right? As well, not just like all the stuff, but the way it's arranged. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a perfect segue, Jordy. So within feng shui, obviously, clutter is the number one thing, but then there are all kinds of things to take into consideration. Like, for example, if you think about like early humans deciding where they would want to settle or feel safe, um, maybe they would go to a cave, right? Because a cave is a kind of like secluded, you have protection from the back, you can see what's going outside, you can see what's going on outside. Or likewise, maybe you would want to build a shelter or a settlement in the mountains, where you're kind of like tucked in from behind. So this is one of the primary feng shui um, kind of things to consider, is this command position. So for your bed, for your desk, for your chairs, like, or your big sofa, or whatever are your main seating areas, you want to have this command position. So that means that you have something behind you. It doesn't mean that you have to be against a wall, but for example, if you have a floating sofa, you can put like a console table just to kind of offer that like superficial sense of support, and somewhere where you can observe the room in front of you. You can see who's coming and going, and we all have this natural kind of tendency to choose seats. Like when we're going out to a restaurant, you kind of instinctively where you want to sit, and that is feng shui. It's like observing the room, seeing how the energy is circulating, and choosing intentionally to sit in one spot. So you may sit with your back to the corner where you can see everything coming and going, and you may just naturally feel more safe there, because you're kind of protected from the back, you're not vulnerable, and you can see what's going on. So that's a good principle to just kind of think about for your own space. Like, is my bed in the command position? Can I see the door from my bed? That's something you want. You don't want the bed, you don't want the door behind you, you don't really want the door blind next to you. It's best to be looking at the door from your bed, from your desk, and kind of have that support from the side, or from the back and from the sides. And like I said, it's not like if you have your door right next to your bed, it's going to all, come crumbling down, but it's just something to consider. Maybe if you are redesigning a space or moving things around, it's good to take that command position. Let's see, what else is there in feng shui that's kind of, because I don't like to just say, oh, like, know this, like, yes, this, know that, just because it's so much more than like the black and white. But let me think for a minute. Yeah, I mean, there's feng shui for every part of your home. You could feng shui your office, your bedroom, and that means incorporating certain colors. There's also a big part of feng shui is what's called the bagua map. So it's different depending on kind of which field of feng shui you're using, but within the one that I'm using, which is like I think it's called like black hat feng shui, it's like you use the front door of your space as the center or the top of like this hexagon. And within the hexagon, which is called the bagua, your home is divided into 8 different parts. And these 8 different parts all correlate with a part of life. So the ancient Chinese said that everything that happens in life could be boiled down to one of these 9 categories, because there's also a hexagon in the middle. And it's kind of hard to explain like without the map, but if anyone is curious, you can just look up feng shui bagua map, BAGUA. And that for me is a really fun way just to like decide on how to set up your space. So for example, the categories they include relationships, career, love, helpful people and travel, skills and knowledge. So literally anything that's going on in your life could be either supported or maybe impacted negatively by your living space. So when you first come in, then you can kind of decide, oh wow, like okay, here's the career bagua. I want to bring some more focus to my career. What are the good elements for career? Oh, water is really good. So an example of water showing up in the elements is water is represented by dark colors, by undulating forms. So anything that's kind of free form shapes. Glass is another thing that represents water. So if you come in and you see a big mirror, then that's like immediately getting hit by like the water element. And let's see, how else is water described? I think, yeah. So it's just fun to start to like look around your home and be like, huh, like what element is that? Obviously, anything that has water in it or running water, like a fountain, would be a big addition to the water element. Then we have wood. Wood is represented by green. It's kind of got this upward moving shape. So anything that's columnar or rectangles, that would be wood. Let's see. And then we have metal. So this, I feel like it's so much information. So I wouldn't blame you guys if you're like, your heads are spinning, but there's also these relationships within the elements where like certain elements help or hurt the other ones. So if you have wood, for example, it could be diminished. That wood element within your home could be diminished by the presence of metal, because metal cuts wood. Similarly, wood uproots earth. So if there's a big tree in one part of your home where that's like it should be earth dominant and you have a big tree there, that could be causing that bagua not to kind of work as well as it could be. So there's like so much to learn, and I can share the book that I learned pretty much everything from, and the teacher that I've been working with. The book is called Move Your Stuff, Change Your Life. And it's a really simple, kind of straightforward introduction to feng shui, where you can just start to like think about the primary principles and implement it in your home. That's what I did when I moved into my home. My grandma's very spiritual, and she was like, "Oh, well, if you're moving to a house, you have to learn about feng shui." And she told me about this book, and I was like, "Oh my gosh!" Like, as someone who struggles with like making decisions about where to put stuff, like this made it so easy for me, because I was like, "Oh, well, of course I want all of these areas of life to be harmonious. Like, I'll purposely put things in different places." So it makes like this decision making process really easy and fun, just to think that like, oh, okay, if I put these flowers that are pink, they're kind of representative of love, and like that'll kind of help my relationship. And it's like little things that you're just like, well, maybe it's more of the intention about this, but there is also the energetic quality of this stuff.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I'm just gonna say this really quickly because my mom is really into all of this as well. And her and my dad were having like a bit of struggles with their business, and she read about where to put this crystal in the house to generate prosperity. And literally, since she put the crystal there, their business is just like going nuts. I mean, it might be a coincidence, but it doesn't really sound like it because it was like literally just days after when they started getting all these business deals all of a sudden. And she's like, oh my God, see, look, it works.
Exactly. Like that's the crazy thing about it is you can be like, oh, is it the intention or ways to kind of dismiss that? But there are so many stories of people that have literally just made simple changes in their home and seen like huge results in their lives, which I find like so interesting. And I also think feng shui is such a vast body of knowledge. It's kind of like yoga for me. I'm like, okay, this is probably going to be like a lifelong interest and study. So there's so much to learn, but it's like, it's so cool because you see it working. I worked with someone last year and she hired me to do just like normal decluttering. She wanted to do the Marie Kondo method. And like the most cluttered room in her house was the one that correlates with the career part of her life. So it was like full of stuff, like literally just like this dark room that was just crammed full of stuff. She had two young kids, and ever since she had her kids, she just realized that like stuff was building up and she didn't have time to like declutter, in this room just became like a storage room. And actually at the time she was pregnant, so she was clearing out this room to create a nursery, and she like got super into the KonMari method. She did amazing work. She built this beautiful uh, nursery, and like a month after she uh, gave birth to her baby, she decided she was going to take like a virtual assistance course and quit her job and started a business. And now she's killing it. Like I think they're in within 1 or 2 years, they're almost at like $1 million in sales in this business that she started. And I'm just like, how does that even happen? Like, this is so drastically different from the time that I met her. Now she's got this amazing job, amazing career that she loves. And it's so correlated to this space that was just so densely weighed down by all this junk, basically. So I love those success stories. I think they're really fun.
Yeah, it's so interesting. And I have to ask you, what's the thing with the red door? Because I remember my mom was like, we're painting the door red. And I was like, I don't know why. And she just said something and I forget what it was now.
Totally. That's funny because it's such a like typical like feng shui cure.
Yeah.
Um, but it's actually a really good headway. So the reason for painting front doors red is because it draws attention to your front door. So if anyone here lives in like um a home, like a I don't know, like a normal house, not an apartment, you want your front door to be visible, because if you have a visible front door that people can easily see and like access and feel comfortable, like that's going to mean opportunities are coming your way. That means opportunities can find you. And so one way to like draw more attention would be to paint your front door red. Another way, actually, which is the more common reason to paint your front door red, is that it offers like a barrier of protection. So red is a really powerful color. That's why in terms of bringing attention to something and also making people stop, that's why stop signs are actually red, because it has that like powerful force of like, hey, like notice me and stop. um, so there's another reason why people paint their front doors red, and that's like if you live in an apartment, say that's the apartment's located at the end of the hall, or a street that's at the end of the street, like all of that incoming traffic, foot traffic, car traffic is going to penetrate your front door and potentially like disturb the chi of your home. So red, painting your front door red offers that like barrier of protection from outside chi or energy. So if you don't want to paint your door red, you can also like tie a string kind of like around, like a red string around the door, or like the floor mat. It the the funny thing about feng shui, and I guess it's not really funny, is that you like there are all these kind of like unseen cures where you're like, oh, if you put this red string, like that'll be enough of like protection. But then you think about like having that clutter, even if you can't see it, it's still going to be impacting you. So what we can't see doesn't necessarily not impact us, especially like physically in our spaces. So that's another thing. Like if you live across from a roundabout, or if you have, like I said, at the end of the street or hallway, that could potentially be putting like a lot of energy into your home, which is unwanted because it can like disturb everything. So you could paint your front door red. You could plant like bushes around the front of your property, anything to kind of slow or stop that energy from penetrating you so fast. But yeah,
And
that's a common one.
what about like I think a lot of us in Sydney live in apartments because real estate is ridiculously expensive. So what about like in apartment buildings? Do your neighbors energy get in there? Like how do you protect yourself from that if you can't paint your door red?
That's a great question. Um, honestly, there's no sense that like, I mean, if your apartment is like oddly shaped and it like half of it lies in the space of another's, that energy could potentially like impact you. But if that's a worry, you can always do like the red string kind of thing. um but I think like it's just a matter of making your space as harmonious and comfortable for you as possible. So like I said, like minimizing clutter and just filling the nooks and crannies of your space with things that you really love. I think an easy way to have like harmony in the home that most people don't think about is like clearing your countertops. So rather than leaving, like I'm here with my boyfriend and his friends and like there's just like stuff everywhere and I'm like, oh whatever, like I'm not gonna take that on. But like it does contribute to a sense of kind of like disorder, like when you have food and appliances and stuff just like cluttering the space. Like it feels so much better once you get used to it to just put things kind of out of sight and just use them. If you don't use them every day, like leave it, like store them in a drawer. um, that I think that's like an easy fix for people. I'd say for apartments also, just incorporating like live things. Like you could add plants, you could add like a small miniature water fountain, like a desktop water fountain, something that's like adds sound or running energy. Like all of that is really good feng shui. The crystals redisperse light, which is really a positive thing. And yeah, I think it just depends on your style and also kind of like your particular space. Um, let me see if I can think of any other cures for apartments. Let's see. Any questions from here? Any any comments or things? Oh, go ahead, Sally.
I have one. So I might be the odd one out in this group. I'm a full-time house sitter as well. So besides living in the van, I change houses very often. And I know I'm not going to go into someone's house and try and feng shui it. But is there maybe a tip you have, that something small that maybe I can take with me or to be mindful of, that I can kind of, yeah, just implement to every house that I go to?
Yeah,
I
that's a
know it's
good
probably a really
question.
difficult one.
No, that's a really good one. It's hard, yeah. I've definitely done that where I've stayed at houses and all of a sudden you're like rearranging things and you're like, wait, this is not helpful for people. um, at first I thought you were gonna ask like if you were like how to make it like nice for you, but you're asking about like how to improve the space itself.
Well, to improve the space in the time that I'm there, I'm super respectful of the people's houses that I look after, so I'm not going to be moving their stuff around. But is there like maybe little things I can be mindful of? For example, even if it's, I'm not sure, the study I use or the desk I use where I'm going to be working for 8 hours a day. Yeah, just if there's anything just to be mindful of.
Yeah, at least I think just maybe incorporating that command position. I also the thing that like came up for me immediately was like, I think it can be really nice if you're moving around a lot to have you could bring like a crystal with you or like a token. It doesn't have to be anything, just something that you like and relate to, so that you could like sit down and be like, okay, like this is my space, like almost building like a little altar. And it doesn't have to be a lot of things. It could just be like one thing that you keep in your pocket. You're like, okay, like this is like my grounding space just for you energetically, because I move around a lot too. And it can definitely like wear on you, especially if the house that you're in maybe isn't doesn't have like the best feng shui or isn't organized that well. Like you can kind of bring that sense of harmony with you wherever you are going. So that was the first thing I thought of. But also I think, I don't know, it's just so hard like with other people. So you could always just bring like fresh flowers. That's kind of a nice thing energetically. That one of the feng shui people I follow, she always talks about just like bringing fresh flowers into your home kind of just like adds this element of just like a fresh kind of feeling to this space, which is nice. I don't always buy flowers, even though I'd like to, or even like a little potted plant. Or maybe you could go and just make sure that all the plants are taken care of and happy, and kind of just like spread that kind of positivity around the space. But yeah, it's a really good question. I think I'm gonna think about that one a little bit more. It's a good one.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
That reminds me of when I was in India a couple years ago. Me and my boyfriend went to a ashram, and we learned how to like properly meditate in the Himalayan tradition. And the guru there told us to, because we were like, oh, we want to keep this up. Like, what's your advice on, when we leave the ashram, it's not as easy when we go into the crazy world. And he told us to go buy a scarf that was orange, because that's like the color of the sadhus and everything in India. But and he said every time you meditate, just sit down on your orange scarf, so then you like know that that's like your meditation scarf kind of. So I don't know, maybe if that helps at all too.
Oh my gosh, I love that. Yeah, that's so on point. It's so good. And I think that just like plays back into like the sense of purpose for items, and like the sense of things being sacred, and holding that energetic charge. Like one thing that I started to think about was like the number of people that play a role in producing, shipping, creating the things that we buy. Like all of that, all of the hands that these items go through, like they all like leave an energetic charge on our items. And so just to kind of if you treat your things with respect and love, then like they're automatically going to serve you better. Like I found this in the last couple of years. Like if there's a piece of clothing or something that I'm just like, ugh, I don't really like it that much, like I swear it'll just get lost. And I'm just like, oh well, it felt that from me, and it's like I'm gonna leave, like I'm gonna go find a life somewhere else. And also like people, I feel like people always look at me like I'm crazy when I talk about like how things have a life, but it's true. Like whatever you're not using could be something that someone else really loves, so why not just give it that chance to like have a second life? And no matter what you do with it, like someone else is probably gonna pick it up and use it anyways. So if you're not using it, then like get rid of it. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I love that. Gotta love those like goodwill purchases that you get sometimes. You're like, who would want to throw this out? This is amazing.
Yeah, totally. So I guess I'll just mention it now, because when I was filling out the forms, one of the things that I'm like mostly doing now, more so than the helping clients in their homes, just since COVID and everything, is I've joined this community of women who started with the KonMari method, but they've now started doing it like just with your life. So rather than like going through your stuff and deciding what you want to keep and not keep, it's going through like your day and like figuring out what felt draining to you, and what felt like it brought you joy and kept you alive, like throughout the day and throughout the week. So it's called the clear and cultivate method. So at the end of the day, you think, okay, like what do I want to clear, and what do I want to cultivate? And I think it's a similar community from what I can see of this is yoga, of just like getting together and having a theme that you talk on and bring people in to talk about, and practicing this method. And it's really awesome because, like, especially during COVID, we get together in our small groups every 2 weeks, and we actually have a chance to just like go around and share like what's going on. So it's been such a positive experience for me just to get to know all these women from around the world, and women that are in different life stages as me, and just kind of like hear what's going on in their life. So we do have a couple members in Australia, I think. So if anyone's curious, we can look it up. It's called Clear and Cultivate, or Cultivate Club. And yeah, it's similar to this, because I realized that you guys have like a membership and stuff, and I think it's so awesome to provide that space for people to feel like they're part of a community when they're stuck at home, and maybe feeling isolated or kind of withdrawn from society. So
Oh, that sounds awesome. Yeah, no, we're so glad that we've done all this online stuff, because I think it's been good for everyone to keep everyone a bit connected, especially people that live by themselves. I feel so bad for anyone that lives by themselves right now, because for a while, like, you weren't even allowed to see other people, and you're just stuck inside by yourself unless you're like exercising outside. But yeah, having the online community has been like a game changer for a lot of people, I think. So
yeah, it's huge. So this month you guys are doing the theme of like letting go, and then what is the theme for next month?
Yeah, so this is like letting go, clearing things out, and then next month will be filling up that space with healthy habits and kind of new beginnings. And it kind of works out perfectly because everything's opening back up as well. So it's like, yeah, it'll be
Perfect.
on par.
Yeah, that's great. That's so great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say for anyone that's like doing any last minute decluttering, just it is important to like, it's so perfect that you have this month, because it is important to like really finish the process of getting rid of stuff if you're going to do it with like the physical clutter before even organizing it. Like it's really good to kind of just take inventory of what you have, what you know you want to keep. And once you're done getting rid of stuff, then you can start to say, okay, I want to store these things here, and I want to store this here, and I want to move these things around. Because it is like just like setting intentions. So I love that. I love that you guys are following with like how to just fill it intentionally, fill that
Yeah.
space.
Yeah, it's good. And also, guys, I thought I'd mention, obviously Ace takes private clients on. So if you want to work with her and need help or want to know any more or specifics about your home, like, definitely reach out to her. She's in the Facebook group, but if you are on Facebook, just let me know and I'll get you in touch with her.
Yeah, I'm not on Instagram currently. I took a break from it and then realized I really liked not having it. So if anyone wants to connect, you can just find me on Facebook. I am in that group, like Jordy said.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I did a little month and a half Instagram detox and it felt so good. I'm back on now and I'm like, oh, do I need to be back on here? I don't know.
That's how mine started. I did like a week-long media detox. So like I don't even think I read. I think it was just like almost like a meditation. And then I was like, wait, I don't want Instagram back. But who knows? Maybe soon I will get it back.
Well, that's probably as well what you're talking ties into like what you're talking about, just letting those sort of energies into your life. Because I know a lot of times social media can be pretty negative, especially now with all the division that's going on with everything. So
I think that's what I found I wasn't liking the most, is just like seeing what people would post, and then like just being like, oh, like judging them, or being like, oh, you stay over there, kind of just like me thinking that way. And I found that without Instagram, like I actually have a lot more meaningful connections in person. Like when I talk to someone, I'm not just like looking at their Instagram right after and being like, oh, who is this person? Like it's kind of like a more sense of being open to however that person shows up in the moment and in that interaction. Because it is intense right now with all of the division and kind of polarized, especially in the States. A lot of people are just on very different wavelengths, and it's hard to feel like, a sense of unity.
Yeah, I know. I know the news always makes things sound way worse, but for the last couple years, it's looked like a total shit show over there. I must be honest.
Oh my God, it's so bad.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
Yeah. Yeah.
Total shit
Glad I'm in
show.
Australia for now. Although I wish they
know,
would
good for
let me
you.
leave. I can't even leave if I want to. It's a bit hectic.
Oh my gosh, yeah, crazy, crazy times. I think that's all the more reason just to kind of like go inward, focus on building something beautiful for yourself that like just brings you back to that sense of like wholeness and tranquility. Like the outside world is so crazy, like all the more reason just to build like a really strong, like soothing space that you can recharge in.
Yeah, totally. Have your little sanctuary.
Yes, yeah, I'm all about the sanctuaries.
Yeah. Sweet. Well, is that all?
Yeah, that's all from me.
Yeah,
And if anyone has
awesome.
questions, yeah.
Yeah, anyone have any questions, contributions, anything to say?
Well, thanks for listening, everyone. I know it was a lot of different moving parts. It was hard to decide like what to talk about, but at least I can offer a couple of resources if anyone wants to dive deeper.
Yeah, thank you so much. Well, you've given me a lot to think about because I'm like the messiest person in the world. So ever since we did AB's course together, because me and Ace met each other in our entrepreneur or soulpreneur course that we did together last year. And yeah, ever since I met you there, I was like, I need to clean my closet, and I still haven't cleaned my freaking closet.
Oh my
So
gosh, yeah. Well, when the time is right, I'm sure you'll jump into it.
Yeah,
Sue just
probably
said,
now. Get into the theme of the
Sue,
month.
yes, yeah. Sue just said that she was motivated to KonMari her winter jumper, so that's awesome.
Oh,
That's the
nice.
perfect way to do it. Like just I and then moving forward, you can just do it by category. Like whenever things start to feel cluttered, you just bring them all out together and go through them one by one. Which ones are my favorites? Which ones do I wanting to let go of? And it just makes it kind of easy and manageable.
Awesome.
So yeah.
Anyone else have any other little burning questions or contributions? Nope. Alrighty. Well, yes, Annie, time to do the decluttering. I know we can do it together, girl.
Yes.
Ace, if you want to just post a couple of those things in the Facebook group, maybe about the recommendations of like the books and that you said, maybe,
Yeah,
so the
totally.
people who missed it can have a look. And for those who are watching the recording, we missed you. And yeah, reach out to Ace if you have any more questions. And yeah, thank you so much, babe, for taking the time to talk to our community. I so appreciate it. And I know they all do too. So super exciting that we have international people tuning in for us. So we really, really appreciate it.